All right. Let's get started. If everybody could take a seat. Thank you. Awesome. So our next speakers are Carl, Alexandra, and Lucas from American Airlines, which is nice. It's my favorite airline. So my partner was saying, hey, what's your favorite airline? So I actually heard about American Airlines initially from the podcast that you did on the Developer Enablement podcast. I think DX puts that together, right, with Avi and Oda. If you work in the developer enablement space, I highly suggest checking it out. It's a very good podcast. And I was really impressed with the content that you covered there. So I really look forward to hearing about what you've done with Backstage. So with that, I'd like to welcome Carl, Alexandra, and Lucas.
Hello. And I guess, where's the clip? Oh.
Yeah, you'll need that.
That'll be helpful.
And I hope we're everyone's favorite airline, of course.
Yeah.
But we're, thank you. We're actually here today to talk to you guys a little bit about how we use Backstage at the world's largest airlines. And I'm going to, first of all, we wanted to start out with a quick history of how we ended up with Backstage. Really, it all started back in 2019. We had a couple of coaches. We have an internal dojo at American Airlines that we call the Hangar. Obviously, we try to name everything with airline names, and you'll kind of see that more and more as we go. But in the Hangar, we would work with teams, and a lot of time that we would spend with the team was on repetitive tasks, setting up pipelines, setting up projects, just giving them the basics. Sometimes we'd be working with a team for 6 weeks, but 2 of those weeks would be pure setup and introduction. So we wanted to come up with something that allowed us to speed that time up, less repetition, and give off-the-shelf patterns to people, and potentially even make the self-service so the rest of the company could use it. So we came up with what we call the delivery excellence templates, which was basically just a couple of example projects. They weren't really even templates, if we want to call them that, that we created and that we maintained as coaches, and we would use this whenever we were working with teams. And we even went as far as converting some of them to Yeoman generators so that we could quickly use a CLI, spin up a project, and actually turn them into legit templates. And that's when Backstage came into the picture. So it was around the time when, obviously, the pandemic started. So we were working remotely, and we were trying to figure out ways to do more with less. And around the time, I guess March 17th is when Spotify published and shared the blog post talking about Backstage. Just a few days after that, we had some people from our emerging tech team actually share that blog post with the coaches. And when we looked at that, we thought, whoa, this is so similar to what we're trying to accomplish. Let's dig into this. We had a working POC by the 25th. We actually shared that with some of our leadership, got buy-in. And obviously, here's another nickname that we came up with. We called it the runway. So we helped teams take off. And we knew that this would only work if we had community buy-in. We needed people in the company to be excited about this. So we really kicked things off by a couple of hackathons. So we had hackathons around templates, hackathons around plugins, and that's really when things started picking up. So we'll fast forward a little bit to today and kind of where we are right now as an ecosystem. So today, Runway is the central portal for pretty much everything you do at American as a developer. We leverage internal and external tools. One of the key things that we did to accomplish this was we actually worked with teams that already offered internal portals at American Airlines. So you can see a list there. We have the IT Service Catalog, Project 42, VRA, InterSource Marketplace. We had a few different things that were all kind of offering various pieces of functionality, but kind of spread out. And what we did with Backstage was we helped these teams build plugins for those offerings and bring it all in one place. We also wanted to focus in on what we were offering the teams when they were starting a new project. And we knew that we had to kind of pick an approach and a pattern that we wanted to support. So we picked a few frameworks and a few languages that we wanted to, help people set up. And that's where we kind of get the things there at the top. So we focused a lot on Kubernetes, and we built Kubernetes operators to help people onboard to Kubernetes without actually having to know everything. So in our environment, if you are onboarding to Kubernetes with about 10 lines of YAML, you can have your full environment set up. We also build a lot of GitHub Actions and reusable workflows. So if you have an application that's in one of our stacks, you can have a workflow up and running within just a few seconds. And we also created our Runway certified templates. And what this is basically our stamp of approval that says, hey, this template works, and we're going to guarantee that. If you remember earlier, I said we had a hackathon around templates. We also ended up with quite a few junk templates that either don't work or are just horrible examples of what you should do. So that's why the certified templates became very important. Now, the key thing I said there is that those templates should work that we're certifying. But we found that that's actually really hard to do. It's very hard to guarantee that a template is always going to work, especially when you're taking user inputs and things change. A template could work today, could not work tomorrow. So in order to make a change to a template, required a lot of manual testing. Feedback loop was insanely long because you have to generate a project and then put it in a repo, create a PR, watch pipelines run, and if things break, you have to start all over again. This was very error prone. So some of the stuff we've been working on recently to mitigate this pain point is we actually created a small library called the Runway Template Renderer, which basically allows us to generate our software templates locally from command line or even from JavaScript code. So this is actually really cool because it allows us to have a developer working on a template on their computer and quickly generate and see the results of what they're doing without having to do the whole process of generation. And then also, because it's a JavaScript library, we can use it in conjunction with something like Jest and quickly write unit tests for it. We've also added recently, which is a library called GitHub Actions Test Utils, which we didn't have a really cool creative name for this one. We need to come up with an airline name for this one. But the library is basically used for creating GitHub repos, creating PRs against those repos, triggering workflows, and observing those workflows. So we actually use this in conjunction with the template renderer to spin up projects, put them in a repo, watch the results, and make sure things work so we can actually automate everything end to end. So some of the improvements that we've had here, you can see on the right-hand side there, we actually have an example of a template project, which used to be a template project would be just what you see in the source directory there, a skeleton and a template YAML. But now they're more of a full-fledged JavaScript project where you have your test directory, you have your fixtures, you have your package JSON. Local development improved significantly because now you can actually spin up your project locally really quick. Both of those libraries in conjunction give us a full end-to-end testing through Jest and other tools. So that's where we are with that. I'll hand it off to.
And for inner source.
Sorry.
And I'm here to talk about inner source. So inner source is something big that has made our Runway platform based on Backstage successful. This is actually my third attempt at an internal developer portal at American Airlines, and this one will be successful because of inner source. So moving along, we wouldn't be anywhere without our community. Runway started as an experiment, as Lucas had mentioned, and we engaged the community early on the vision we had to ease the journey to the cloud. We've now reached 127 unique GitHub code contributors, and this doesn't include standalone plugins that exist, templates, GitHub bug reports, GitHub feature requests, or all the individuals who have attended our different community events, such as our discoveries, our demos, and weekly office hours as well. Our active community tells us that all of American Airlines IT wants to be part of making American Airlines development better than what it is currently today, and we're happy to be able to provide the platform to do so. We attempt to make contributions easy. We heavily utilize the tech docs features ourselves of Backstage, and we have instructions on contributing to the Runway platform and offer templates for standalone plugins. One gripe we heard early on was that one team, our team, was gating all of our Backstage instance, and it just wasn't ideal. Our PR process became extremely slow as more and more teams started to contribute, and we also had pretty high standards ourselves. Some teams wanted to work in different ways, have different release processes, different approval processes, different standards, and things like that. We wanted to keep high standards for all, but we really didn't want to play gatekeeper, and we didn't have time to spend our entire day reviewing pull requests of plugin updates and new plugins. So as part of our maturity process, we invited teams to create standalone plugins where they actually release their plugin to our internal Artifactory platform, and then we suck them in at build time like any standard NPM module. And this has definitely improved the process and the collaboration between teams, and we used Dependbot to pull in the new updated plugins so that teams don't have to notify us, they don't have to create pull requests. We've made it highly automated, and the teams have been much happier about that. This is a list. A bunch of others have showed their navigation bar. We need to do some redesign because it's grown quite a bit, but this shows some of our custom plugins that have come from inner source methods, and the Runway platform has been a sign of movement in the right direction towards automation and self-service, and those capabilities weren't previously there with any other platform. As far as challenges go, every great story has some challenges behind them. And for us, education at scale has been an issue. Either the interfaces might not have been generated so friendly, or the patterns and solutions we've come up with just don't work for everyone. We've also had problems getting customers pointed in the right direction with help they might need because of all of our diverse platforms and plugins. We don't support the Kubernetes platform behind the scenes or the VMware platform behind the scenes, nor do we maintain those plugins either. So getting customers pointed in the right direction has been a challenge for us. In addition, maintainability. We have some teams that have supported us through creating plugins and some teams that we have to handhold to get them towards the self-service and automation paths that we're looking for. And then in other cases, we've had to directly create the automation and self-service capabilities that are needed. In the past, one example was our global traffic management team. They had lost one of their developers, but we really needed that functionality to serve our customers. So we jumped into the team, built it, and continue to run that today, which is also a pain point in maintainability a bit. As far as adoption goes, we've also had problems there as well. But we're making headway on all these different items, and using a centralized platform, some of our teams have viewed as a black box type item where they can't see everything going on behind the scenes. We do work really hard to make sure that they still have full access, even though, like Lucas mentioned, we're abstracting the Kubernetes manifest. Users can still log into Kubernetes if they're experienced users and see all the resources they want to see, so they can lift up that curtain behind the scenes. Through all these challenges, we have seen continued growth in the platform, and we've continued to shift the way that we think about how we design our platform. And that's where I'll hand it off to Alex for some UI UX.
All right, so thank you. I'm going to start out with more of a general slide about our UX flow at American. So if you Google UX design process, you're going to see probably that exact picture or something very similar. But I like to use this photo to demonstrate that design is an iterative process. The more you know, the more you learn along the way, your first solution that may have worked can be even better over time. And at AA, our UX organization has a goal of making sure that every employee actually basically adopts design thinking as a core competency within their job. So we have education for this, but it really helps when facilitating workshops, doing user research and all of that good stuff because people understand the benefit behind UX design. So within Runway, I joined Runway earlier in this year in January. And I am the first product designer, so we are still new in our UX UI exploration of Runway. One of the first things that I wanted to do was understand who our users were behind the developer title. What did they like about their job? What did they not like about their job? And as I asked these questions, I realized that I wanted to create a user persona. And for those of you who don't know what user personas are, it's just a general profile of your target users to help build empathy within your product group, as well as put yourself in the mindset of the user when you begin ideating solutions. So talking to a variety of developers, a couple themes that I found when asking them, what did you like about your job? Almost unanimously across the board, our developers said, we love solving complex problems and we really enjoy learning new technologies. Now, on the flip side of the coin, when asked what they didn't like about their job, it varied a little bit more, but we did still see some common themes in there. For one, interruptions in their workflow. Developers don't like having to stop and start again. Also, they don't like troubleshooting tools that are supposed to make their job easier. So with these user personas in mind, I was able to start approaching problems within Runway with a more informed thought process ahead of time. For example, one of the most recent things I've worked on was redesigning our template experience. When we walked our users through the existing flow, we got a lot of really good feedback, and we saw themes that really mimicked the user personas. For one, we had a simple form that was truncated into multiple steps, and our users felt that that was a little bit clunky, a little bit tedious at times for just a simple form. And then within the form in the middle, there was a potential interruption spot where if it failed, the user would either have to completely abandon the task and the effort that they put in, or they would have to stop and go get help from one of our Runway team members who are super helpful. So with this being said, two of the main redesign points that I made were, one, I took that flow and I put it into one page so that the users could clearly see the start and stop points, as well as move that potential interruption point to the front so that if something wasn't working, they hadn't put in that effort to fill out that form already and could go work on something else until it was resolved. And so far, we've received really great feedback on that. One thing I get asked pretty frequently from other people is, how can I incorporate UX into my product if I don't have dedicated UX resources? My first answer is just talk to your user. Ask them if they want to get some coffee, have them go through what they do on the daily within your product, talk to them about what they like and they don't like. If you have new ideas, have your users walk through it. They're the ones that are on the ground every day doing the hard stuff, and they'll be able to tell you, no, this doesn't really make sense, or this is awesome, I love this. Another thing is asking why with design decisions. If you're going to change something, make sure that you understand the root cause of the problem and that it's not just a Band-Aid on a bullet hole kind of situation. And finally, be open to feedback. I know feedback can be a little bit difficult to hear, especially when you put your heart and soul into a product, but really feedback is just meant to make your product better.
All right, and I'm back up here to talk about benefits and successes that we've seen. So in a few instances, we've outlined all the steps it takes to get things done at American Airlines. And as times have changed, we've recognized a pattern of continued growth as well. This image here shows all the steps it took to get to production, and we didn't get the whole whiteboard included in this picture either. So within our coaching organization, this is where the picture came from. We reviewed all those repetitive processes with the teams to get to production, and we've also worked similar processes with other teams on their continuous integration and continuous deployment workflows as well to try to establish our enterprise workflows. With the Runway team and the current leadership in place, there was a direction to create a priority pass for teams to move fast through their deployments using the Backstage framework. We created an opinionated path. We actually first started with app services and moved into Kubernetes to make a better path in the end and a better goal. Through this, we assisted teams with purpose-built automations that in some cases our team had to go outside of our wheelhouse to develop in order to make benefits for all of American Airlines. And in the end, teams informed us that we saved them tons of time. One example was getting a .com live, just a URL live. It took some teams up to 6 months to get that .com live with all the security, the tickets, and all the swivel chairing of those tickets as well. And we got that down to a matter of about 10 minutes with additional security, maybe tools included now. Maybe we're up to about 20 minutes, but it's a huge dramatic difference from what it used to be. Additionally, our Kubernetes team said that it would take them 6 months to stand up new clusters. We dropped that down to 40 minutes cross-cluster with mesh connectivity as well. And Runway is not just for new services or redeployments as far as time savings, but due to the centralized services and automation that we've created, all teams can benefit. One team had mentioned that 30% of their automation time has been taken. So through the work over the last few years, we've seen a huge growth in the ecosystem of Runway. It's more than just a platform. It's been an entire mindset shift of the engineers that they've gotten into. The questions are now, how can we provide a happy experience to our customers, and how can we stop being a bottleneck and look to the Runway ecosystem as a solution to the problems of all? Due to the golden templates along with plugins, developers no longer fragment the ecosystem at American Airlines. And thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Great, so we have a lot of questions.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so. Yeah, so one of them, you mentioned something that is similar to our experience here at Autodesk, that we have a lot of diversity and heterogeneous setups of existing systems. And I think you referred to these as snowflake patterns, making things difficult for you. I'm interested, and also you focused a lot on templates, right, for net new. What is the relationship between those two things? Are you using the templates and automating the net new service creation to wrangle the snowflakes and decrease make things more homogeneous and easier to support?
So we have primarily focused on greenfield applications, new applications. That's been our goal for the templates and a lot of the back-end systems that we also support. But we've started stepping into a lot more of the existing applications as well, providing PR templates through Backstage, being able to add things to certain repos that are already existing. A big example of that are new items that have come forward from our security group that teams might want to add the workflows for. They can use one of the templates inside Runway to add those security features to their existing repo, add those workflows and things like that. And then as far as existing systems, our Kubernetes platform, the enterprise shared Kubernetes clusters that we now run, were purpose-built for Backstage. But we do have our VMware team that has introduced features for existing VMs and other platforms like that as well.
I was going to add a little bit to as far as like what we build into our templates. So I did mention when I was talking about templates that we kind of picked a few languages and frameworks that we were going to support and that we were going to enforce or kind of provide. But we didn't just pick that, right? We didn't just come up with what we were going to do. We actually have our own tech radar at American Airlines. We work really closely with them to make sure that what we're doing is in line and that we're following the tech radar technologies. And also for things like pipelines, we have a developer flow summit that we do at American now. It's something new we started out, which is we work with teams around the company that are very passionate about automating their delivery to come up with what should this pipeline look like? What do we want an end-to-end flow to look like? And we also have a weekly demo and discovery session that we do with our community. So we invite everyone in, we show them what we've done, and then we close it off with some discussions that we're having internally about what we're going to build next, and getting everyone's opinions on what we should do. That way, it's never just a decision that we're making. We're going to push down to the company. Right? We're saying, come with us. Like, let's make a decision together.
Awesome. Another question came in. I think this is a UX question. How have you handled the customization of the actual interface of Backstage, and how is that like? How do you deal with that with regards to upstream community changes and
I would say just in relation to the customization of the UI in general, that's something that I've had to partner very heavily with Lucas and Carl on so that we can understand what is UX best practices and then what is technically feasible for the stage that we're at right now. So it really does take a village, and working with the developers is crucial to that.
I would add one more thing to that. Early on, as far as customizations, one of our teams internally kind of went a little crazy with the catalog, and it made upgrades very, very difficult to the point where I dreaded every single upgrade that was coming. So working with upstream, working to introduce those customizations that you want, and then also taking advantage of the existing customizations that are there. One example of that is on the create screen, you've got all the different template cards, and Backstage actually allows you to use your own template UI files as well. So there's ways that you can customize without breaking the boundaries.
Awesome. Yeah. I think we're seeing that exact same challenge at Autodesk with our Backstage right now. We're navigating that as well. I'm interested. I've been a little bit surprised by the amount of custom plugin development that I've seen across all the talks. So I'm interested in what percentage of community plugins versus custom plugins would you say that you have in Runway?
I would say maybe it's about 50-50, probably.
Yeah, percentage is a little hard to nail down. I think earlier on we had more custom plugins just because there wasn't a whole lot out there, but we've actually deleted some of our old plugins and started using things that Backstage has offered more and more, or that the community has offered more and more when we saw it available.
Yep.
Our favorite thing is to drop something if we don't need to support it
100%,
anymore. We
yeah.
can contribute back to the community instead.
Makes a lot of sense.
And we've also taken things from what we developed originally in InnerSource, and then we've open sourced them as well. So we've worked with Rody to open source Argo CD plugins with them, and then we've contributed some features and bug fixes as well to the general Backstage framework.
Awesome. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.